My name is Harper Cole. I'm 29. And a few days ago, my own brother treated me like a beggar in a parking lot that I own. Before I tell you about the moment his face turned ghost white and his knees buckled, do something for me. Drop a comment and tell me what time it is, where you are, and which country you're watching from. I want to see how far a story about arrogance, karma, and a very cold plate of revenge can travel. The sun was beating down on the asphalt of the corporate park, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and smell like melting tar. It was a Tuesday late afternoon. I was sitting in my car, a 2011 gray sedan with a dent in the rear bumper and an engine that sounded like it was coughing up a lung every time I turned the key. The air conditioning had died 3 summers ago, so I had the windows rolled down, sweating through my t-shirt, waiting for the traffic to clear out of the main exit. That's when I saw him, Dylan, my older brother. He was walking out of the glass double doors of the main building, the headquarters of Zenith Financial. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by 3 other guys, all of them in sharp, tailored suits that probably cost more than my entire car. They were laughing, that loud, booming laughter that says, "We own the world, and everyone else is just renting space in it." I should have rolled up the window. I should have just turned up the radio and looked away. But Dylan has a radar for me. He has this sixth sense for finding me whenever I'm looking my worst, just so he can remind me of the pecking order in our family. He spotted my car first. It's hard to miss. In a sea of BMWs, Teslas, and Mercedes, my gray rust bucket sticks out like a sore thumb. He stopped, said something to his friends, and pointed. They all turned to look. My stomach tightened. I knew what was coming. It was the same routine we'd played out since high school. Only now the stakes were higher and the audience was wealthier. Dylan jogged over, his friends trailing behind him like a pack of well-dressed hyenas. He leaned his arm on the roof of my car, blocking the sun, peering in at me through his aviator sunglasses. "Harper!" he boomed, flashing a grin that was all teeth and zero warmth. "I didn't know you were in the neighborhood. What are you doing here? Deliveries? Uber?" One of his friends snickered. "Maybe she's collecting cans, Dill." I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. "Just running errands, Dylan. Good to see you." "Is it?" He laughed, standing up straight and reaching into the inside pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a long, rectangular piece of paper. Paycheck. But not just a regular paycheck. It was a bonus check. I could tell by the color of the slip. Zenith Financial issued blue slips for standard salary and cream-colored ones for quarterly performance bonuses. He waved it in the air like a flag. The paper made a crisp snap sound. "Just got the quarterly payout," he bragged, making sure his friends could hear him. "Top earner in the division again. The numbers on this thing? It's embarrassing, honestly. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe a new boat. Or maybe I'll upgrade the Rover." He leaned back down, bringing his face close to the open window. The smell of expensive cologne and stale coffee wafted in. "Hey," he said, his voice dropping to a mock whisper, though it was loud enough for his audience. "Do you need some help, Harper? I mean, really, that noise your engine is making. It sounds terminal." "I'm fine, Dylan," I said, staring straight ahead. "Come on," he pressed, reaching into his pocket with his other hand. He pulled out a wad of cash, 20s and 50s, folded in a silver money clip. He peeled off a 20 and flicked it through the window. It landed on my passenger seat. "Get yourself some gas money," he said. "Or maybe an air freshener. It smells like desperation in there." His friends exploded. They were doubled over, slapping each other on the back. "Gas money," one of them shouted. "Good one, Dylan. She needs a whole new car, man, not just gas," another chimed in. I looked at the $20 bill on the seat. Then I looked at Dylan. Underneath the sunglasses, I knew his eyes were dancing with delight. This wasn't about helping his sister. This was about performance. He needed to show his pack that he was the alpha, the successful one, the generous king tossing scraps to the peasant. "Take it," he urged, smiling. "Seriously, I made more than that in the time it took me to walk to your car." Consider it a donation to the Harper Survival Fund. I picked up the bill. For a second, I thought about crumbling it up and throwing it in his face. I thought about screaming that I didn't need his charity. I thought about telling him exactly who signed that cream-colored check he was waving around. But I didn't. I smoothed the bill out on my leg, took a deep breath, and looked him in the eye. "Save it, Dylan," I said calmly, extending my hand to give it back. He recoiled like I was handing him a dirty tissue. No, I insist. You clearly need it more than I do. Look at you. You're wearing... What is that? Target brand. I said save it. I repeated, my voice steady. You might need it later. He laughed again, shaking his head. Me? Need $20? Harper, look at this check. He shoved the bonus slip near my face again. I'm set for life. I'm untouchable here. But hey, if you're too proud to take cash, that's your problem. Don't say I never tried to help. He slapped the roof of my car twice, thud. Thud. A dismissive gesture, like patting a dog. All right, boys, let's go. Drinks are on me. Clearly, my sister has some very important sitting in a hot car to do. They turned and walked away, heading toward a row of gleaming luxury vehicles. I watched them go. I watched the way Dylan strutted, his shoulders back, the check still clutched in his hand like a weapon. He threw his head back, laughing at something one of the guys said, probably another joke about my junk car. I sat there for a long moment, listening to the idle of my engine. The heat was suffocating, but I felt cold. Cold and sharp. I looked at the $20 bill still sitting on the passenger seat. He hadn't taken it back. Untouchable, I whispered to myself, repeating his word. I put the car in gear. The transmission clunked. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I checked the rearview mirror one last time. Dylan was getting into his black Range Rover. He looked like the king of the world. He had no idea that the junk car he just mocked was registered to the same LLC that owned the building he worked in. He had no idea that the deliveries I was doing were actually site inspections for a new wing of the campus. And he certainly had no idea that the bonus check he was so proud of, I was the one who authorized the funds for it. But the most important thing he didn't know? I had a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. A meeting that wasn't on his calendar yet. And that $20? I was going to make him wish he'd saved every single penny. To understand why I didn't just scream the truth at him right then and there, you have to understand the Coles. You have to understand the house we grew up in. In our family, money wasn't just currency. It was love. It was value. It was the only language my parents spoke fluently. My father was a corporate attorney, a man who measured his day in billable hours. My mother was a socialite who measured her worth in invitations to galas. And then there was Dylan, the golden boy, the firstborn. From the moment Dylan could walk, he was the star. He was loud, charismatic, and demanding. He wanted the most expensive toys, and he got them. He wanted the branded clothes, and he got them. My parents saw him as an investment. They poured everything into his college fund, his extracurriculars, his image. Dylan is going to be a CEO one day, my father would say at dinner, beaming as Dylan recounted some story about cheating on a test or charming a teacher into changing a grade. They didn't care how he got the results, as long as he looked like a winner. Then there was me, Harper, the quiet one, the one who liked to read, who liked to take apart radios to see how they worked, who wore hand-me-down coats because, you don't care about fashion anyway, honey. When I was 16, I started a small online business selling custom-coded templates for websites. I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I saved every dime. When I bought my first car, a beat-up Honda, with my own money, my parents looked at it with disdain. It's an eyesore in the driveway, Harper, my mother had sighed. Why couldn't you ask us? We could have helped you lease something respectable like your brother's. But they never offered, and I never asked. By the time I was 25, I had parlayed that small coding business into Zenith Financial, a fintech startup that focused on automated investment algorithms. I built it from a laptop in a studio apartment. I ate ramen noodles not because I had to, but because I was pouring every single dollar back into the servers, the software, and the staff. I lived by a simple rule: stealth wealth. I saw what money did to Dylan. It made him soft. It made him cruel. He thought the world owed him a living. He bounced from job to job, getting fired for personality conflicts, which is HR code for being a jerk. But he always landed on his feet because my father would call in a favor. I didn't want my family involved in Zenith. I didn't want my father's advice, and I definitely didn't want my mother trying to decorate the office. So I structured the company carefully. I set up a holding company, Blue Horizon LLC, as the owner. I hired a brilliant, charismatic man named Jordan to be the public face, the COO. He handled the press, the speeches, the ribbons. I stayed in the back, listed on the payroll as a senior consultant. To the outside world, Jordan was the boss. To the internal documents, I was the majority shareholder and CEO. It worked perfectly. My family thought I was a struggling freelancer, scraping by on IT consulting gigs. To fit their narrative. It made them feel comfortable. If Harper is struggling, then Dylan is winning, and the world is in order. Then, 6 months ago, the unthinkable happened. My father called me. "Harper, I need a favor. Not for me, for your brother." "What happened?" I asked, knowing the answer. "He left his last position," Dad said. "Creative differences. Look, I know you do some contracting work for that tech firm, Zenith Financial. I heard they're hiring sales directors." My heart stopped. "Zenith?" "Yes, I saw the listing. I need you to put in a word. Get his resume to the right person. He needs a win, Harper. He's got alimony to pay, and the lease on his condo is up." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell them that Zenith had a strict, no-jerk policy. But then I thought about it. I thought about how Dylan always claimed he was a business genius who just had bad luck with bosses. I thought about how my parents always said I should learn from my brother. So I made a choice, a dangerous one. "Send me the resume," I said. "I'll see what I can do." I didn't hand him the job. I sent his resume to HR with a note. "Interview him. If he's qualified, hire him. Treat him like anyone else. Do not mention me." He got the job. He's good at sales, I'll give him that. He can charm a snake out of a basket if he thinks there's a commission in it. He joined the team and I watched from the shadows. I thought maybe, just maybe, if he had to work for it, he would change. I thought maybe Zenith's culture of hard work and transparency would rub off on him. I was wrong. He didn't know I owned the place. To him, I was just his little sister who sometimes did consulting projects in the IT department. He rarely saw me because I have a private entrance to my office suite on the top floor. But when he did see me, it was relentless. "Hey Harp, fixing the copier? Hey Harp, try not to crash the server today." I took it. I swallowed the insults because I wanted to be professional. I wanted to keep my family life separate from my business. I told myself it didn't matter what he said, as long as he was hitting his sales targets and treating the company well. But the parking lot incident, that was different. That wasn't just sibling rivalry. That was public humiliation. And throwing the money, that was the ultimate sign of disrespect. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the kind of person I was letting represent my company. If he treated his own sister like trash because she drove an old car, how was he treating our junior staff? How was he treating the cleaning crew? How was he treating clients who didn't look rich enough for him? As I drove home that evening, the $20 bill sitting on the seat next to me, I realized I had been negligent. By hiding my identity, I hadn't just protected myself. I had enabled a monster. I pulled into the driveway of my modest suburban house. Another thing Dylan made fun of because it wasn't a downtown loft. I turned off the engine. The silence of the car felt heavy. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jordan. "Hey boss," Jordan answered on the first ring. "Everything okay? You left the site inspection early." "I'm fine," I said, my voice cold. "Jordan, I need full access to the expense reports for the sales division. Specifically, Dylan Cole's team." There was a pause. "Dylan? Your brother? Is there a problem?" I don't know yet, I said. But I have a feeling that if I look under the hood, I'm gonna find a lot of rot. Pull everything. Receipts, travel logs, client entertainment budgets. Everything from the day he started. On it, Jordan said. Do you want me to flag this with HR? Not yet, I said. I want to see the evidence first. And Jordan. Yeah. Clear my schedule for tomorrow morning. And book the main boardroom. The one with the mahogany table. Who's the meeting with? Just the sales leadership team, I said. And security. I hung up. I looked at the bonus check Dylan had waved in my face in my mind's eye. He was so proud of that money. He thought it made him powerful. He thought it made him safe. He forgot the most basic rule of business. Never bite the hand that feeds you, especially when you don't even know whose hand it is. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. 6:30 a.m. The cleaners were still vacuuming the lobby rugs. I swiped my keycard, the black one that grants access to every single door in the building, and slipped into the private elevator. I didn't go to my office immediately. Instead, I went down to the sales floor. It was empty, silent. Rows of ergonomic desks, sleek monitors, and glass-walled meeting rooms. This was the empire I had built. I walked through the aisles, trailing my hand along the tops of the cubicles. I stopped at Dylan's desk. It was exactly what I expected. Messy, arrogant. A half-empty bottle of expensive scotch sat on the filing cabinet, strictly against company policy. There was a framed photo of him shaking hands with a minor celebrity at a golf tournament. No photos of family, no photos of friends, just him looking important. And there, taped to his monitor, was a sticky note. Target $2 million. Bonus, new boat. I stared at it. A boat. He was grinding my employees into the dust so he could buy a boat. I had heard rumors, of course. You can't run a company this size without hearing whispers. I knew Dylan had formed a clique. They called themselves the Wolf Pack, but the rest of the office called them the Untouchables. They were the top billers, yes, but at what cost? I remembered an incident from 2 weeks ago. I was in the elevator, wearing a hoodie and jeans, carrying a box of server cables. The doors opened on the 10th floor, and Dylan walked in with 2 of his pack. They were laughing about a junior analyst, a girl named Sarah. Did you see her crying in the break room? One guy asked. Yeah, Dylan chuckled. I told her if she couldn't handle the pressure, she should go work at Starbucks. She messed up the font on the slide deck. Rookie mistake. She's been here a week, Dill, the other guy said, though he was smiling. Survival of the fittest, Dylan shrugged. He looked at me then, standing in the corner with my box. He didn't recognize me instantly because I had a cap on, pulled low. Delivery? He asked, not really looking at me. Just moving equipment, I mumbled. He reached out and pressed the lobby button, canceling my floor selection. We need this express, he said. Take the next one. We're talking strategy. He practically pushed me out as the doors were closing. I stumbled into the hallway, the heavy box digging into my ribs. The doors slid shut, and I heard them laughing again. Who was that? Nobody. Just IT support. Nobody. Standing there at his desk now, the memory made my blood boil. He treated people like furniture, obstacles to be moved or stepped on. I walked over to Sarah's desk. It was clean, organized. There was a small stress ball shaped like a cat. I picked it up. Sarah was brilliant. I had reviewed her hiring packet myself. She was a single mom working 2 jobs before this, graduated top of her class. And my brother was reducing her to tears over a font choice? Excuse me. I turned around. The security guard was standing there, looking suspicious. It was Mike, the night shift lead. He frowned. Then his eyes widened as he recognized me. Ms. Cole, he stammered. I didn't expect you. I saw someone on the cameras and thought. It's okay, Mike, I said, putting the stress ball down. Just checking on things. Is everything all right? He asked, relaxing his posture but still looking concerned. Mike, I asked. You see everything on the cameras. You see how people leave at night. Tell me about Dylan Cole. Mike hesitated. He looked at his shoes. The new sales director? Yes. He's energetic, Mike said diplomatically. The truth, Mike. Off the record. Mike sighed. He's a nightmare, ma'am. He leaves his takeout trash on the floor for the cleaning crew. He parks in the handicapped spot if he's running late. And, well, I've seen him yelling at staff until they shake. He calls the interns gophers. Last week, he told the receptionist she needed to smile more or he'd replace her with an iPad. I nodded slowly. Thank you, Mike. That helps. Are you going to keep him? Mike asked, taking a risk. I'm going to fix it, I said. Mike, I need you to be outside the main boardroom at 10 a.m. Bring 2 others. And bring a box. A box. For personal effects, I said. Mike's face broke into a small, knowing smile. Yes, ma'am. I'll be there. I went up to my office, the real one. The one with the panoramic view of the city, the one Dylan thought belonged to some faceless conglomerate. I sat down at my desk, the glass surface cool under my hands. I powered up my terminal. Jordan had come through. The email was waiting for me. Subject: Expense Audit, D. Cole, confidential attachment. D_Cole_Audit_Q3_Q4.xlsx. I opened the file. Rows and rows of data filled the screen. Red flags were highlighted in yellow. I started reading. And as I read, the sadness I felt about my brother began to harden into something else. Something colder. Something necessary. This wasn't just bullying anymore. This was theft. The spreadsheet was a roadmap of greed. I scrolled through the lines, my eyes darting from dates to amounts to merchants. It was worse than I thought. It was blatant. It was reckless. It was the behavior of someone who believed they were above the law. Item 143. Dinner at Lou Bernardin. Cost: $1,400. Purpose: client meeting Apex Tech. I checked the cross-reference log. Apex Tech wasn't even a client yet. And on that date, I checked Dylan's social media. He wasn't smart enough to keep it private. On that date, he had posted a photo of a steak dinner with the caption, "Boys' Night Out. Living the good life." He had expensed a bachelor party dinner as a client meeting. Item 215. Travel Miami. Cost: $4,500. Hotel The Four Seasons. The notes said conference. I checked the industry calendar. There was no conference in Miami that week, but there was a music festival. Item 302. Office supplies. Cost: $800. I clicked on the receipt image. It wasn't paper or toner. It was a receipt for a high-end espresso machine. I had never seen an espresso machine in the sales break room. That machine was sitting in his kitchen at home. I felt a wave of nausea. This was my money. This was the money I skimped on meals to save. This was the money I refused to spend on a new car so that I could offer full health benefits to my employees. And he was stealing it to buy steaks and espresso machines. I remembered the parking lot again. Need some gas money? The irony was so sharp it could cut glass. He was offering me my own stolen money as charity. He was playing the benevolent rich brother using the funds he had embezzled from his poor sister's company. I picked up the phone and dialed our legal counsel, Sarah Jenkins. Not the intern, the shark of a lawyer we kept on retainer. Harper? She answered, sounding awake despite the hour. Lawyers never sleep. I'm sending you a file, I said. I need you to look at the fraud implications. Possible embezzlement. Who is it? Dylan Cole. There was a heavy silence on the line. Sarah knew he was my brother. She was one of the few who knew everything. Harper, she said softly. Are you sure? This is a criminal offense. If we pursue this, it's not just firing him. It could mean prosecution. I know, I said, staring at the entry for the Miami trip. He stole over $50,000 in 6 months, Sarah. That's a felony. It's your brother, she reminded me. Your parents. My parents created this. I cut in. They taught him that he could do no wrong. They taught him that rules are for other people. If I let this slide, I'm just another enabler. Okay, Sarah said, her voice shifting to professional mode. I'll draft the termination papers for cause. Gross misconduct, theft, violation of fiduciary duty. Do you want the police involved? I hesitated. This was the cliff. If I called the police, I was sending my brother to jail. Not yet, I said. I want him to pay it back. Every cent. If he does, we don't press charges. If he refuses, then we call the DA. Understood. I'll have the papers ready by 9 a.m. I hung up. I felt drained, but my resolve was ironclad. I looked at the clock. 8:15 a.m. The office was starting to wake up. Emails were pinging. The hum of the HVAC system kicked in. I needed one more thing. I needed to catch him in the act of arrogance one last time. I needed to see his face when he thought he had won so that his fall would be absolute. I opened my email client and composed a new message. I added Dylan and his 3 lieutenants, the guys from the parking lot. Subject, urgent. Executive strategy and leadership review location. Main boardroom time. 10 a.m. mandatory attendance. I sent it from the office of the CEO alias, an email address that usually only sent out company-wide newsletters. It was ominous but vague. I sat back and waited. 5 minutes later, my burner phone, the one I used for IT consulting, buzzed. It was a text from Dylan. Yo Harp, you won't believe it. Just got summoned to the boardroom by the CEO office. Big things happening. Might be director level soon. Tell mom and dad I might be buying that beach house after all. I read the text. The delusion was incredible. He saw a summons from the CEO and assumed it was a coronation. Congrats, I texted back. Hope you're ready. I was born ready, he replied. Losers watch, winners play. Remember that. Losers watch, I whispered to the empty room. I stood up and walked to the closet in the corner of my office. Inside, hanging in a garment bag, was my armor. It wasn't a hoodie. It wasn't a Target t-shirt. It was a custom-tailored charcoal suit. Italian wool. Sharp, severe, commanding. I pulled out a pair of black stiletto heels, the kind that make a distinctive, terrifying click on a marble floor. I stripped off my casual clothes. I put on the suit. I pulled my hair back into a tight, sleek bun. I applied a layer of red lipstick war paint. I looked in the mirror. Harper, the jobless sister, was gone. Harper, the Ken collector, was gone. Staring back at me was Harper Cole, CEO of Zenith Financial. I checked my watch. 9:55 a.m. It was time to go downstairs. It was time to collect the debt. The hallway leading to the main boardroom is designed to intimidate. It's long, lined with floor-to-ceiling glass on one side and abstract art on the other. The floor is polished concrete that reflects everything. I stood in the private anteroom connected to the boardroom, watching the security feed on a tablet. Dylan and his crew arrived at 9:58 a.m. They were strutting. God, the strutting. Dylan was wearing a navy suit that was a little too tight, a gold watch glinting under the lights. He was laughing, high-fiving the guy next to him, a man named Greg who was the VP of regional sales and equally complicit in the bullying culture. I'm telling you, Dylan was saying, his voice carrying through the microphone. They're going to offer me the VP of North America role. The current guy is weak. They see my numbers, they see the bonus checks. It's a done deal. What about the audit rumors? Greg asked, looking a little nervous. Paranoia, Dylan scoffed. Who's going to audit us? We bring in the money. You don't audit the golden goose, Greg. You feed it. He stopped at the heavy oak doors of the boardroom. He adjusted his tie, checking his reflection in the glass handle. Showtime, boys, he said. Let's go in there and act like we own the place. Because pretty soon we will. He pushed the doors open. They walked in. The boardroom was impressive. A 20-foot mahogany table stretched down the center. Leather chairs. A panoramic view of the skyline. But the room was empty, or so they thought. At the far end of the table, the CEO's chair, a high-backed leather executive chair, was turned away from them, facing the window. Dylan stopped. The laughter died down. They looked around, confused. "Hello," Dylan called out. "We're here for the leadership review." Silence. "Maybe they're late," Greg whispered. "The CEO isn't late," Dylan said, annoyed. He walked confidently toward the head of the table. He placed his hands on the back of one of the empty chairs. "Have a seat, guys. Let's make ourselves comfortable." Power moves. They sat down, shuffling papers, checking phones. Dylan sat to the right of the head chair, the seat of the heir apparent. "I wonder who it is," Dylan mused. "Jordan? Or maybe the silent partner. I heard rumors there's a majority owner nobody sees. Maybe it's Elon Musk," one of the cronies joked. Dylan laughed. "Whoever it is, I'm going to ask for a 20% bump in base salary. And stock options. If they want Dylan Cole, they have to pay for the brand." I was listening from the anteroom, my hand on the doorknob. The arrogance was suffocating. He was negotiating a raise while standing on a trapdoor. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment of truth. I signaled Mike on the headset. "Secure the hallway. No one leaves." "Copy that," Mike's voice crackled. I opened the connecting door, the secret entrance behind the CEO's chair, and stepped into the room. But I didn't announce myself yet. I stepped softly onto the plush carpet. The high back of the chair still hid me from their view. I stood directly behind the chair. "You want to talk about the brand, Dylan?" I said. My voice was calm, projected perfectly. The room froze. The silence was instant and absolute. "Who's that?" Dylan asked, squinting at the back of the chair. "Jordan." "No," I said. "Someone who thinks your brand is currently valued at -$54,000. I reached out and gripped the top of the leather chair. "What is this?" Dylan stood up, angry now. "Stop playing games. Show yourself." "Sit down, Dylan," I commanded. My voice dropped an octave, hitting that tone of absolute authority that I usually saved for negotiating multimillion-dollar mergers. For the first time in his life, he listened to me. He sank back into his chair, confused. "You asked for a meeting with the owner," I said. "You asked for a review. You asked for attention." I spun the chair around. The chair spun. I didn't sit in it. I stood behind it, resting my hands on the leather headrest, framing myself like a judge in a courtroom. The reaction was visceral. It happened in slow motion. Dylan's jaw literally dropped. His eyes bulged. He blinked once, twice, as if his brain was trying to reject the image it was processing. "Harper?" he choked out. It was a sound of pure confusion. It wasn't fear yet. It was just a glitch in his reality. What are you doing here?" he stammered, looking around as if waiting for the real CEO to jump out and arrest me. "Harper, get out. This is a restricted meeting. Security is going to—" "I am the security." I cut him off. "And the CEO. And the owner." The words hung in the air like smoke. Greg, the VP, looked from me to Dylan. "Dylan? This is your sister? The one with the car?" "Yes," I said, locking eyes with Greg. "The one with the junk car. The one you laughed at yesterday. The one you said was collecting cans." Dylan stood up again, his face flushing red. "Okay, very funny. Did you sleep with the janitor to get the key? Harper, seriously, get out before you get arrested. You're embarrassing yourself." He still couldn't see it. He couldn't comprehend that the power dynamic had shifted. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I simply picked up a remote control from the table and clicked it. The massive screen behind me roared to life. It wasn't a PowerPoint about sales targets. It was the security footage from the parking lot yesterday. High definition. Audio enabled. "Get yourself some gas money. Or maybe an air freshener. It smells like desperation in there." Dylan's voice echoed through the boardroom, tinny and cruel. Then the screen split. On the other side, the spreadsheet appeared. The audit, the steak dinners, the Miami trip, the espresso machine. Embezzlement detected. $54,320. The color drained from Dylan's face. It started at his cheeks and washed down to his neck until he looked like a wax figure. He went pale, dead pale. He looked at the screen. He looked at me. And then, finally, he looked at the nameplate sitting on the desk in front of the CEO's chair. I reached over and flipped it around. Harper Cole, founder and CEO. No, he whispered. No, that's impossible. Mom said. Dad said. Mom and Dad don't know, I said, walking slowly around the table toward him. My heels clicked on the floor, click, 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 like a ticking clock. I built this company from a laptop while you were partying in Cancun on Dad's credit card. I built this building while you were failing out of your third sales job. I stopped right in front of him. I was close enough to smell the fear on him. It smelled like sweat and cheap cologne. You flashed a check at me yesterday, Dylan, I said softly. You asked if I needed money. I reached into my suit pocket and pulled out the $20 bill he had thrown into my car. I slammed it onto the table in front of him. I don't need your money, I said. But you're gonna need a lot of it. Because grand larceny is an expensive charge to fight. Larceny, Dylan squeaked. He looked at his friends for backup, but they were staring at the table, terrified. They knew. If the captain was going down, they were going down with him. $54,000, Dylan, I listed off. Fraudulent expenses, fake client meetings, theft of company property. It was just a perk, Dylan stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. Everyone does it. Harper, come on. It's me, your brother. We're family. Family? I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. Family doesn't humiliate each other in parking lots. Family doesn't steal from each other. You didn't treat me like family yesterday. You treated me like a prop for your ego. I was joking, he pleaded. It was just a joke. I was going to tell you. You were going to what? I leaned in. Offer me a job cleaning your boat. He said nothing. He just trembled. You called me a failure, I said. You called me a spectator. But while you were playing the big shot, I was signing your paychecks. I was approving your bonuses. I gave you a chance, Dylan. I hired you hoping you'd grow up. But you're small. You're so small. I looked around the table at the others. And you, I pointed at Greg. You laughed. You mocked my car. You bullied my staff. You think because you bring in revenue, you're untouchable. Greg couldn't even meet my eyes. Ms. Cole, I didn't know. Ignorance isn't a defense, I snapped. It's a liability. I turned back to Dylan. He was slumped in his chair, a broken man. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the terrifying realization that his life was imploding. I have 2 documents here, I said, sliding a folder across the polished wood. One is a repayment plan. You sign over your bonus, your final paycheck, and you liquidate your assets to pay back every cent you stole. If you do that, I don't call the police. And the other? He whispered. The other is a termination notice, I said. I leaned down, bringing my face level with his. I wanted him to remember this moment forever. I wanted him to remember the jobless sister who held his fate in her hands. You're fired, I whispered. The words hung there, heavy, final. All of you, I added, looking at the group. Get out of my building. Now, Mike is outside with boxes for your personal items. You have 10 minutes before security escorts you off the premises. Dylan stared at me. Harper, please. My condo, the alimony. If I lose this job, you should have thought about that before you stole from me, I said. Save the 20, Dylan. You might need it for gas. I turned my back on him and walked toward the window, looking out at the city I had conquered. Behind me, I heard the sound of chairs scraping, shuffling feet, and the heavy thud of the door closing. I was alone in the boardroom. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally letting go of the secret I'd carried for years. I picked up my phone and dialed my father. It was time for the second hardest conversation of the day. Hello, Dad answered. Dad, I said. It's Harper. You might want to sit down. Dylan is coming home early today, and he has some news. Part 7. The Walk of Shame and the Family Tribunal. 2,600 words. The silence in the boardroom after Dylan left was heavy. But outside those mahogany doors, the noise was just beginning. I didn't stay in the room. I needed to see it through. I needed to ensure the cancer was fully excised from the body of my company. I watched from the tinted glass of the anteroom as Mike, my head of security, performed his duty. It wasn't violent. It was clinical. That's what made it so devastating. There was no shouting match, no dramatic struggle. Just Mike and 2 other guards, standing like stone pillars, pointing toward the elevators. Dylan walked out first. He had tried to compose himself, smoothing his jacket, fixing his tie, attempting to salvage some shred of dignity. But his eyes gave him away. They were darting around, wild and panicked, like an animal realizing the cage door had locked. Behind him, Greg and the other 2 cronies looked like they were walking to the gallows. They carried cardboard boxes, hastily packed with phone chargers, framed photos, and whatever personal debris they had accumulated while pretending to be kings of the office. The main sales floor had gone quiet. Word travels faster than light in a corporate environment. The rumor mill had already churned out the headline. The wolf pack has been hunted down. Heads peeked over cubicle walls. Eyes widened. I saw Sarah, the junior analyst Dylan had bullied to tears over a font choice, standing near the copier. She held a stack of papers against her chest, watching the procession. When Dylan passed her, he didn't sneer. He didn't make a snide comment. He looked at the floor. He couldn't even bear to face the people he had tormented now that his shield of invincibility had been stripped away. I saw Sarah stand a little taller. She didn't smile. She was too professional for that. But her shoulders relaxed. The tension that had lived in her posture for weeks evaporated. That tiny shift in her body language was worth every penny of the revenue I was about to lose by firing my top sales team. I walked back to my desk and picked up my phone. The call to my father was still connecting. Harper. His voice came through, sharp and impatient. I'm in a meeting. What is this about Dylan coming home? Did he get the promotion? Is that why he's leaving early? I sat down in my leather chair, staring at the city skyline. No, Dad. He didn't get the promotion. He was fired. There was a pause, a long, suffocating silence. Then a laugh, a dry, disbelief-filled chuckle. Fired? Don't be ridiculous. Dylan is their star. He just told me yesterday he was bringing in record numbers. Who fired him? Some jealous middle manager? I'll make a call. I know people on the board of Zenith. You can't make a call, Dad, I said, my voice steady. Because the person who fired him is the majority shareholder. The owner. Well, then I'll call the owner, he snapped. I'll threaten a lawsuit for wrongful termination. They can't just fire a producer like Dylan without cause. They have cause, I said. Grand larceny, embezzlement, fraud. You're lying, he spat. Why are you saying these things? You've always been jealous of him. Just because he's successful. I fired him, Dad. I interrupted, cutting through his denial like a knife. Me, Harper. I own Zenith Financial. I own the building. I own the desk he sat at. And I fired him 10 minutes ago for stealing $54,000 from me. The silence on the other end wasn't just quiet. It was the sound of a worldview shattering. I'm coming over, I said. We need to talk. Tell Mom to sit down. I hung up before he could respond. My hand was shaking, just a little, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally, after 29 years, dropping the mask. I drove to my parents' house in my junk car, felt poetic. The gray sedan rattling down the driveway of their pristine, manicured estate in the wealthy district. I parked behind Dylan's Range Rover. He beat me there. Of course he did. He drove like a maniac, probably trying to get his version of the story out before I arrived. I walked up the front steps. I used to feel small walking up these steps. I used to feel like the disappointment coming home to apologize for not being brilliant enough, pretty enough, successful enough. Not today. Today, I walked up those steps as a CEO coming to conduct a performance review on her family. I opened the door. I could hear them in the living room. My mother was sobbing. Dylan was shouting. She set me up. I swear to God, Mom, it's an accounting error. She cooked the books to make me look bad because she hates me. I walked into the room. It was a tableau of dysfunction. My mother, Patricia, was draped over the floral sofa, clutching a handkerchief, looking as if she were mourning a death. Dylan was pacing back and forth, tie loosened, sweat staining his collar, holding a glass of whiskey. My father stood by the fireplace, his face red, looking like a thunderstorm about to break. "She's here," Dylan hissed, pointing a shaking finger at me. Ask her why she ruined my life." My father stepped forward. "Harper, what is this nonsense? Dylan says you've been working at Zenith secretly, and that you somehow manipulated the board to get him fired." "I didn't manipulate the board, Dad," I said, dropping my purse on the coffee table. "I am the board." "That's impossible," my mother wailed. "You fix computers. You live in that awful little house. You drive that rust bucket. It's called bootstrapping, Mom," I said. "It's called reinvesting profits. It's called building something real instead of pretending to be rich." I reached into my bag and pulled out the file. The same file I had shown Dylan in the boardroom. I tossed it onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud next to a crystal vase. "Read it," I said. My father looked at the file, then at me. He hesitated. He didn't want to look. Looking meant knowing. Knowing meant accepting that his golden boy was a thief. "I don't need to read your fabricated lies," Dylan shouted, trying to grab the folder. I was faster. I stepped on the folder with my heel. "Touch it, Dylan, and I call the police right now. Sarah Jenkins has the criminal complaint drafted and ready to file. The only reason the police aren't knocking on this door right now is because I gave you a grace period to pay me back." "Pay you back?" My father looked confused. "For what?" "For the $54,000 he stole," I said cold. "Steaks, trips, espresso machines. He used my company credit card like his personal piggy bank." My father finally picked up the folder. He opened it. He put on his reading glasses. The room went silent, except for my mother's soft weeping and the clinking of ice in Dylan's glass. I watched my father's eyes scan the lines. I watched the denial fight with the evidence. He was a lawyer. He knew what a forensic audit looked like. He knew what verified receipts looked like. He couldn't pretend this wasn't real. "Lou Bernardin," my father muttered. "The Miami trip. Dylan, you told us the company paid for that because you won an award." "They did," Dylan lied, desperate. "I mean, it was a perk. Harper is twisting it." "It wasn't a perk," I said. "It was unauthorized." And looking at the dates, that Miami trip? That was the same week you told Mom you couldn't come to Grandma's funeral because you had critical client meetings. My mother stopped crying. She looked up, her mascara running. "What?" "Check the dates, Mom," I said gently. "He wasn't working. He was at a music festival in Miami. On my dime." My mother looked at Dylan. For the first time in her life, she didn't look at him with adoration. She looked at him with horror. "Dylan? Is that true? You missed Grandma's funeral to party?" Dylan scrambled. "Mom, no, it was networking. You have to network to get clients. Harper doesn't understand business." "I understand business well enough to know that fraud is a felony," I countered. My father closed the folder. He took off his glasses. He looked old. Suddenly, the powerful corporate attorney looked like a tired old man. "Harper," he said, his voice quiet. "You own Zenith?" "Yes." "And you hired him?" "Yes. I wanted to give him a chance. I thought if he had a real job, he would straighten out." "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked. There was hurt in his voice, but also accusation. "Why did you let us believe you were struggling?" Because if I told you, I said, looking around the room at the expensive furniture, the portraits of Dylan, the trophies on the mantel, you would have tried to control it. You would have told me to hire Dylan as CEO. You would have told me to buy a flashier car to represent the family. You never respected me, Dad. You only respected money. So I kept the money, and I kept my self-respect. We just wanted the best for you, my mother sniffled. No, I said. You wanted the best for Dylan. You wanted me to be his support staff. Remember when I was 14, and he stole my app idea? You told me to be quiet. You told me to let him have the win because he needed the confidence boost. Well, I'm done boosting his confidence. I turned to Dylan. He was cornered. He knew the game was up. You have 48 hours, I said. Liquidate your assets. Sell the boat you don't have yet. Sell the Rover. Cash out your 401k. I want a cashier's check for $54,320 on my desk by Friday at 5 p.m. If it's 1 cent short or 1 minute late, I file the police report. I can't raise that kind of cash in 2 days. Dylan screamed. I have a mortgage. I have alimony payments. My ex-wife is already breathing down my neck. Then ask Mom and Dad, I said, gesturing to our parents. They're the ones who created this version of you. Maybe they want to bail you out one last time. I looked at my father. Are you going to pay for his crimes, Dad? Again? Are you going to dip into your retirement to cover his theft? My father looked at Dylan. He looked at the whiskey glass in Dylan's hand. He looked at the entitlement etched into his son's face. No, my father said. The word hung in the air. Dad, Dylan whispered. No, my father repeated louder this time. I paid for the lawyers when you got that DUI. I paid off your credit cards 3 times. I paid your down payment. I am done. You can't be serious, Dylan yelled. She's ruining me. She's your daughter. Tell her to stop. She's the CEO, my father said, looking at me with a strange mix of fear and newfound respect. And she's right. You stole. You lied. And you missed your grandmother's funeral to go to a concert. My father turned his back on Dylan. You're on your own, son. Dylan looked at me. His eyes were filled with pure, unadulterated hatred. I will never forgive you for this. I don't want your forgiveness, Dylan, I said, picking up my purse. I want my money. I walked to the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it gently. As I walked down the steps to my car, I could hear shouting erupting inside the house again. But this time, it wasn't my parents yelling at the world to protect Dylan. It was the sound of a family finally fracturing under the weight of the truth. I got into my car. The engine cranked, sputtered, and finally turned over. I patted the dashboard. Good girl, I whispered. I drove away. I didn't turn on the radio. I just listened to the wind rushing through the open windows, washing away the smell of that house. The air felt cleaner. The road felt wider. But the war wasn't over. Dylan was desperate. And desperate men are dangerous. I knew he wouldn't go down without trying to burn everything else down with him. I needed to be ready for the legal storm that was coming. The next 48 hours were a blur of legal maneuvers and corporate triage. Dylan didn't pay by Friday. Of course he didn't. Instead, he hired a lawyer, a cheap strip mall attorney who sent a cease and desist letter claiming hostile work environment and entrapment. It was laughable. I sat in my office with Sarah Jenkins, my general counsel. She read the letter out loud, pausing to sip her coffee. He claims you forced him to spend the money by creating a culture of high-stakes expectations. Sarah chuckled. That's a new one. Basically, my boss made me steal $1,400 dinners because I was stressed. File the police report, I said. I didn't hesitate. The grace period was over. Done, Sarah said. We also filed a civil suit for the restitution. And since he used company funds for personal travel, the IRS might be interested in his tax filings. I can make an anonymous tip if you want to go nuclear. Let's stick to the theft for now, I said. I don't want to destroy him completely. I just want justice. Harper, Sarah said softly, putting the paper down. He's going to lose everything. You know that, right? With a felony charge, he'll never work in finance again. His license will be revoked. He made that choice, I said, though my stomach churned. He made it every time he swiped that card. He made it when he mocked me in the parking lot. If I protect him now, I'm saying that it's okay to steal as long as you have the right last name. I can't build a company on that. The fallout was swift. The police picked Dylan up at his condo on a Saturday morning. My mother called me screaming, begging me to drop the charges. She said I was tearing the family apart. I told her the family had been torn apart years ago. I was just finally turning on the lights so we could see the wreckage. The plea deal came 2 weeks later. Dylan pleaded no contest to a lesser charge of misdemeanor theft in exchange for full restitution and 3 years of probation. He avoided jail time barely, but the conviction was on his record. The real punishment, however, was financial. To pay me back, he had to sell the Range Rover. I admit, there was a dark satisfaction in seeing the repo truck tow it away. He had to sell his condo. He moved into a small, rented apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place he used to make fun of. His friends, Greg and the others, vanished. As soon as the money dried up and the reputation was tainted, the wolf pack dissolved. Greg actually sent me a LinkedIn message apologizing, asking for a reference. I didn't reply, but the biggest change happened inside Zenith Financial. With Dylan and his toxic crew gone, the atmosphere in the office shifted overnight. It was like a heavy fog had lifted. People started talking in the elevators again. Laughter returned. Not the cruel, mocking laughter of the wolf pack, but genuine camaraderie. I stopped hiding. I started parking my junk car in the CEO spot. The first day I did it, the security guard, Mike, gave me a salute. I walked through the front door, head held high. I held town hall meetings. I introduced myself properly. My name is Harper Cole. I told the staff at the first all-hands meeting. I drive a 2011 sedan. I clip coupons. And I believe that integrity is worth more than a bonus check. They gave me a standing ovation. Not because they had to, but because they believed me. Sarah, the analyst, was promoted to Dylan's old team lead position. She didn't have his swagger, but she had something better: empathy and intelligence. Under her leadership, the sales team didn't just hit their targets. They exceeded them by 15% in the first quarter, without a single expense account violation. 3 months after the firing, I was leaving the office late. It was raining, a cold, gray drizzle that soaked everything. I walked to my car. As I unlocked the door, a figure stepped out from the shadows of a pillar. I flinched, gripping my keys like a weapon. Harper. It was Dylan. He looked rough. He had lost weight. His suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a windbreaker that looked too thin for the weather. He looked older, tired. The arrogance that had defined his face for 30 years had been eroded by reality. "What are you doing here, Dylan?" I asked, keeping my distance. "You're trespassing." I wanted to talk," he said. His voice was hoarse. "We have nothing to talk about. Speak to my lawyer." "I can't afford a lawyer," he said bitterly. "Harper, look. I'm struggling. The probation fees, the rent. Nobody will hire me. I'm delivering pizzas. Me, Dylan Cole, delivering pizzas." He looked at me, waiting for the pity, waiting for me to crack, waiting for the sister who used to fix his homework to fix his life. "I need a loan," he said. "Just $5,000 to get back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had thrown a $20 bill at me in this very parking lot. "Do you remember what you told me?" I asked. "When you threw that money on my seat?" He looked down. "Harper, please. You said, survival of the fittest. You said, losers watch, winners play. You told me my car smelled like desperation." "I was an idiot," he muttered. "I'm sorry." "Okay. I'm sorry." "You're sorry because you're wet and broke," I said. "You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught." I opened my car door. Harper! He stepped closer, desperate. I'm your brother. You have millions. You wouldn't even miss 5 grand. How can you be so cold? I paused. I looked at the massive glass building behind me. My name wasn't on the building, but my spirit was in every brick. I'm not cold, Dylan, I said. I'm just finally respecting myself enough to say no. I reached into my purse. For a second, hope flared in his eyes. He thought I was reaching for my checkbook. Instead, I pulled out a $20 bill. The same $20 bill he had thrown at me. I had kept it in my wallet as a reminder. I held it out to him. Here, I said. He stared at it. What is this? Gas money, I said. Or maybe an air freshener. It smells like desperation out here. His face crumpled. The shame hit him like a physical blow. He didn't take the money. He couldn't. Good luck, Dylan, I said. I got into my car. The engine started with its familiar cough and rattle. I turned on the headlights, illuminating him standing in the rain, a ghost of the man he used to be. I drove away. I didn't look back. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. We're selling the house. Downsizing. Mom wants to know if you want the old piano. I smiled. The dynamic had shifted. They were finally adjusting to the new reality. I texted back. Keep it, but I'll take the family photos. The ones in the drawer. I merged onto the highway, heading home. My car was old. My pockets were full. And for the first time in my life, I was completely, unapologetically free. This story isn't just about revenge or a dramatic boardroom reveal. It's about something much deeper. The danger of judging people by their appearances and the quiet power of integrity. We live in a world that is obsessed with flexing. Social media tells us that success looks like a luxury car, a designer watch, or a VIP table. Dylan embodied that mindset. He thought his value came from what he could show off. He mistook net worth for self-worth. But real success is often silent. It's the stealth wealth mindset, building something solid, treating people with respect, and having the discipline to delay gratification. Harper drove a junk car not because she had to, but because she understood that a car is just a tool, while a company is a legacy. The lesson here is simple. Never underestimate anyone. The person you mock today might be the person signing your paycheck tomorrow. And more importantly, never let your ego write checks that your character can't cash. True power doesn't need to shout. It whispers. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or what you drove? Or have you ever seen a Dylan in your workplace get a reality check? Drop a good in the comments if you agree that character matters more than cash. Or share your story below. I read every single one. Stay humble, stay hungry, and keep building in silence.